Greetings and God bless. I was just listening to a teaching company lecture series on medieval history. And at one point, the lecturer was saying that um, to get baptized is to identify with God, is to identify with this belief system of Christianity. And in it, that, she made like that there's an identification. And that made me think of what's going on today, of this pronoun kind of a thing, and this leaning on identification as if you can say you're the opposite, or you're an alien, or you're a cat. And so then that exempts you from having to follow the rules that what biological male has to follow, or a competent adult human has to follow, because people are identifying this way and that. And so, they're a wild deer, so they don't have to behave like an adult. And somehow we're calling that a functional adult in, you know, America in March 2024, particularly amongst the left. And so I just think that's an interesting thing, because I do think that this whole left agenda, even though most of the leftists will say they're atheists or agnostics, or Wicca or something like that, New Age, they won't really acknowledge a biblical God, the Bible, or Jesus. But there is a strong supernatural, spiritual, religious component. And what's makes this striking and more, I think, more dangerous than a cult, is that it's infested so much. I think conservatives, who or Christians, or people with common sense, they just kept their mouths shut when they noticed their loved ones, their children, adult grandchildren, like going off the deep end, and nobody said anything because they were afraid that their loved one would reject them and never talk to them again, which is definitely, it's totally, a cause for concern, of course. But the fact that everybody's kept their mouth shut, and they're still keeping their mouths shut, because I mean, nobody seems to be saying anything. The only stuff that seems to be said is like people on YouTube, like the talking heads. And I just think that, so everybody got numbed out on their prescription medications, and just like watching TV, or going on vacation, or being too busy, at work, and being a workaholic, or being too busy volunteering, and never really having time to talk, not really learning how to work things out. I think that what's happened, like this de-evolution of humanity, of the West and of America. I think it's because we didn't want to learn how to really deal. We just didn't want to work things out. Maybe having to go to group therapy, or whatever. Heal ourselves, have the courage to speak up, and having the strength to work through difficulties. I think everybody's just like, um, I mean, people, life is very demanding, and then people have dysfunctional coping mechanisms, and they're just trying to get through another day. And people seem to hate to talk things out, or go to therapy, like to quality therapy or quality group therapy. Like, people just don't seem to like it. And of course, I think bad therapy, you shouldn't go to it. If somebody's a crappy therapist, or if there's something sketchy going on in group therapy, yeah, you shouldn't go. But if there's somebody who's good, if you're if like, because you got to talk things out. You have to kind of work things out. rather than just be quiet and be seething inside or so hurt inside or whatever. And unfortunately, um, I think I think why grandparents and parents of the dysfunctional adults today, I think why they all just allowed this LBGT pedo thing, this anti-human, misanthropic, humans shouldn't be on the planet. You shouldn't drive a car. You shouldn't be able to have a fire in your fireplace. This mentality, this anti-white mentality. I think this is all because the grandparents were really selfish and they were just doing their own thing, and then they realized, oh, you know what, I messed up, so I'm not gonna call my adult child or my adult grandchild out. And then the adult parent, the adult child of the grandparent, did the same thing, probably even worse, was probably even more crazy and promiscuous and abusive or something, selfish. And so I think this succession of selfishness and self-indulgent and worldliness caused them to be like, "Oh, I'm not gonna call out my offspring for this crazy, destructive, messed up garbage that they're spewing or believing." And so the leftists that we have running around, and I would say even my peers who totally think everything's fine, think it's totally fine that biological men are stealing, um, the trophies that in women's sports. Like my leftist friends from college think it's totally great. There's not a problem. They think no, there's nothing wrong with biological men in women's locker rooms and girls' locker rooms, girls' bathrooms, women's prisons. No, it's totally fine. Even though there's rapes going on, that couldn't possibly be happening. Like I, 20, 30 years ago, the conservatives were guilty of covering up rapes and stuff like that. And now the left is doing the same exact thing. And maybe that's what has to happen is the left is like all holier than thou. Oh, we're always compassionate. We've always done everything right. And in fact, when there were riots and cities were being burned down in 2020, and black neighborhoods were being destroyed, and black people were being murdered and raped by black people, and the left couldn't care less. The left was like, that didn't happen." It's like absolute denial. And the left is like, oh, only Nazis do that. Only conservative Republicans do that. What we're learning is that anybody who has power gets corrupted. And the thing is, this kind of stuff was happening even before. I mean, there's the black on black crime is something that has been happening for decades. um, you know, gay people harming gay people has happened. Like the LBG community harms the LBG community, and it's a big statistic. It's more within the LBGT community than outside. However, the LBG community would totally love to if it were so that the conservatives were trying to get in there and hurt them and stuff. So, um, and the thing is, it's funny because the leftists will say, "Oh, you shouldn't generalize," but then they want to generalize. The leftists will make grand generalizations about conservatives, Republicans, Christians, Caucasians. So and that's what I notice about the leftists is the leftists think that they can have a double standard. The leftists are like, I get to break all logical rules. I get to break all common sense rules. I get to break all moral rules because I'm liberal, because I'm this, that, and the other thing. And I get to use conservative, Caucasian, um, Christians as my whipping boy. Like it's so psychotic, it's so sick, it's so evil. It's like what is the left thinking? And clearly the left isn't thinking. The left's minds, their brain, they're so open, their heads, they're so open-minded, their brains have fallen out. and it's long gone, being eaten by the vultures. And so we just have these automatons, these spinal columns on two legs walking around and driving cars and having kids and making decisions that you know, are dangerous for the rest who are full human beings in their god-given, biology. um so anyways, I think like what we're seeing, it's not entirely the leftists' fault, the leftist, 20-year-olds fault. I think it's a result of their parents who were leftists or even conservatives. But I think it's like, 'cause from what I'm observing of the friends that I know who are leftists, like they were involved in abortions probably. I mean, like, so they have dead babies to their name, and their grandparents probably, or their parents did too. So I think there's like this series, even though they're respectable people, these leftists that I know. So they're respectable, they have a home and they have long-standing marriage and jobs and stuff like that. But they can't see. They're not seeing what's going on in our country, and in our world. They don't see that there's any problem. Um, and they don't even want to see. Like, they think that the shutting down businesses and churches and cities for a scary phantom illness that never happened, and making people suffocate and forcing people to get injections, and all this other, I mean, countless crimes against humanity. Uh, like uh, I know people who think that was totally fine, and would do it again. And so it's like people can't see. They can't see that um, there's a big problem, and it's like, uh, if you can't like, if you don't know what's right and wrong, like the fundamentals of what's right and wrong is not clear to some people. And like it's like they don't even, like, they never maybe ever had a sense of what's right and wrong. Like, who ran things the past, you know like 20, 30 years. Because 30 years ago, yeah, there was messed up things that happened, that I experienced, that I observed. But uh and maybe it's because the things were more litigious. um Maybe because there was more older folks around that were willing to make a stink, maybe at a city council. uh I don't know, but in the past, stuff that was going on, it just doesn't seem like um, it it wouldn't be tolerated. Um, and maybe that's what we're realizing, is that we were operating on kind of automatic pilot, and now we're realizing all these standards were social constructs. And that's, so all these people are murdering people, shooting people. And then, like, I was just watching an article, a video about an article of this guy. He killed 6 people, and some liberal organization in Texas got this guy out of prison or out of jail, even though he, without a doubt, killed a bunch of people. Like, where where is people's common sense? And And it may not even be that question. It's Satan is is running everything. Because if we look at, oh well, so if Satan runs the world, then of course Satan would want somebody who shot a mother, pushing a stroller to death, and all these other people. Of course, Satan would want that guy loose. Like all these states. I was living in Colorado and last year, and they had found stopped a lady who had, like, I don't know, a whole bunch of cocaine, a whole bunch of fentanyl, and she was Latina, Mexican. She was like, "Oh, I don't know how it got there," and it was like this huge amount, and they let her go, and you know, of course, I don't know the facts of the matter, but and I heard a similar story. I don't know if it was Arizona or Texas or something like that, but that happened elsewhere where um, cops are stopping people who have a whole bunch of drugs and they release the person. And my question is, are those cops then selling drugs? Is that police department then going to go sell those drugs, put those drugs into the local supply? Because there's a huge epidemic of drugs, and like I think it's being perpetuated by the trusted agents of the public good. I don't know if it's hospitals that are distributing it, if it's our justice system that is distributing it. I don't know, but um, this is like a massive issue that's going on, and it keeps expanding, and it's consistent. This is like a machine. Let's say this drugs situation, or this brainwashing, like of the left on all the things that you're not supposed to be white, you're not supposed to be heritage, traditional, um, gender, roles. Like these are machines, these are weapons, and they're fully functioning and they're fully going forth. And nothing's being done about it, like the our elected representatives are in their little gated communities, and they're probably being blackmailed, brainwashed, and what's the other one? Blackmail, brainwashed, or um blackmail, brainwash, bribed. So yeah, I mean, it's just we're in biblical times, and the thing is, we're not even, like things aren't even as bad as it's gonna get. But I do think folks need to realize that this leftist thing is religious, and when somebody's doing this pronouns thing, it's a type of baptism, it's a type of identification. And in Genesis, God said what he created was good. And when somebody is saying, God, oh, you did it wrong, God, you didn't create it right, so you are being against God, you're rejecting God, and you're desecrating your body by changing yourself, um, then that's that's a type of religious thing. Even though people would be like, oh, that's not religious. It's a religious thing when you're saying I'm a, a a gribble kakbala, like whatever pronoun they may be. Like to rename yourself is it's a it is a type of sacred, like it has power, and as regardless of what like the Christian haters or the Jesus haters would say. If you're going to distort your gender, you're doing something in your religion, in your spiritual system. And it's a type of baptism, as from what I understand. Um, so because it's identification. And I didn't understand what the whole baptism thing was about, and I'm still learning, but um, that a baptism was a type of identification with God, with this Christian God, um, Almighty God, the Alpha and Omega, Yahweh, Yah. Uh, like that just made me think of this whole identity politics. And that's the interesting thing, is the left is like, oh, we're just being political. This is a total supernatural war. And the left doesn't realize that Marx was hired by the Illuminati to write his book. And it's an occult belief system, Marxism, communism. It's a cult. It's a deep Babylonian dark human sacrifice, pagan worship. And of course, the more these folks get in, the more these leftists get into their cult, like their politics, they will soon discover, because that's always how it is. Anytime you're doing some sort of practice, whether it's a movement practice or a meditation practice or whatever, the further in you go, the more supernatural, paranormal, um, like the head honchos are. And yeah. So anyways, I think the guilty grandparents and the guilty parents of the today's liberal left uh, created this, whether they were liberal or conservative. I think because they were carnal. They were not godly. They rejected the Bible. They rejected God. They rejected Jesus. And they thought, well, as long as I'm a good person, I don't need Jesus. And when we don't have that supernatural protection, no matter how sober you are, or how good you are, or how compassionate you are not going to protect yourself or your loved ones from supernatural paranormal attack. Um, I mean, maybe, maybe not terrible things will happen, praise the Lord, but we just you need Jesus. Why do you need Jesus? Because without Jesus, you will be in the eternity, you will be for eternity without the presence of God. And that's the annoying thing. Like, that's the thing about leftists. They're like, well, even though I hate God and I hate Jesus, that doesn't mean that he's not going to be with me forever. No, no. So the thing is, he gave everybody a free will. And if you say, oh, I reject you, God, then God's not going to force you kicking and screaming into his presence. And atheists are like, well, when I die, I just die. I don't live forever. No, your soul is forever. Your spirit is forever. So, and atheists will be like, oh, well, prove it to me, and it's like, you look around, you see the sunrise, you see a flower, you feel the joy of a loved one, you like, God is making a declaration around you at all time. Beautiful music, beautiful art, miracles that happen to you. So, you know and the thing is, you get to be stubborn if you want, you get to, but it is up to you. It's your job to get to know God, and on his terms, and he makes it abundantly clear. Read the King James Bible. So anyways, thanks for watching. God bless.